Ayan, good morning, Sir Jamie, at then magandang umaga po sa lahat ng ating mga teachers who are with us again today, no, sa ating pangilan na ba 'to, Sir Jam? Third installment ng ating January. Muli po,
Yes, yes.
yan, Sir Jambi, yun. Okay. So for
Good
today,
morning, Sir Franco. Gising na ba
morning.
tayo, Sir Franco?
Yes, medyo ano pa tayo 'no, medyo na, ah, hindi pa totally gising na. So, hopefully our teachers are, ano 'no, well awake na. Also, I know it's a morning, it's a Saturday at lagi nating pinagpapasalamat sa mga teachers natin na, hindi bumibitaw sa ating mga events 'no, sa patuloy na nanonood, patuloy na sumasali sa'tin at sumasama sa pagkatuto 'no, kahit Saturday. And I know our teachers are tired 'no, and exhausted for so many ways dahil sa mga dami ng trabaho, Sir Jambi. Pero again, we thank you for being with us today. And today, Sir Jambi 'no, our we'll be looking at assessments. Okay, so isa to sa mga napaka-importanteng aspeto ng ano no, ng edukasyon natin. Okay, so but here what's different siguro is that kasi siyempre, alam ko naman Sir Jambi no kasi lahat po tayo alam natin kung paano gumawa ng mga assessments, paano mag-design ng assessments, ano ang assessments, para saan ang mga assessments. Kaya lang dahil Sir Jambi nag-shift tayo to distance learning, to virtual learning environment. Okay? Madami ding mga pagbabago yung pinagdaanan ng mga assessments okay? Or dapat pagdaanan ng mga assessments natin. So, yan yung isa sa mga, yan yung pag-uusapan ngayon, contextualizing assessments in a virtual learning environment. Pero Sir Jambi, bago tayo mag-start, siguro tanungin muna kita, ano nga ba? Okay, para sa'yo. Para sa'yo, sir, no? Kasi, although nasa administrative ano ka ngayon, okay, ano nga ba ang assessments para sa'yo?
Ayan, tamang-tama. Ano, kaka-Google ko lang yan. Hindi. Uh, not so much assessment, pero siguro, when do you know if your assessment is, ano ba, appropriate, is the right one? Yun, if it tests really what you intended to test. So, uh, heavily anchored yan dun sa, ano mo, dun sa iyong goals. Okay? Na, well, yeah, to begin with, dapat yung goals na yun, maayos na maayos. Pero, once you have those goals, yung assessment mo, dapat heavily anchored on that. And that is the only time na malalaman mo na tama yung ano mo, tama yung pinili mong type of assessment. Kasi otherwise, you might be testing other things na hindi naman kailangan, hindi mahalaga, or hindi yun yung objective mo, hindi yun yung tinuro mo, tapos nagte-test ka ng iba. So, yun.
Totoo yan, Sir Jambi, no? Yung sinasabi nila lagi na validity and reliability ng mga assessments natin. So, again, well, in the first place, no, Sir Jambi, kahit nasa face-to-face setup tayo, challenging na ang pag-design ng mga assessments natin. So, more so, dito sa distance learning, I think, no, Sir Jambi, ako personally, no, sa encounter ko sa mga teachers natin, ang lagi nilang nagiging concern ay yung integrity. Tama ka, Sir, no? Yung integrity ng ating mga assessments, lalo na in a distance learning modality. No? How do we ensure, for example, assessments that actually measure learning, okay, kung saan, for example, the students are online, lagi nilang question, for example, baka naman tutor ang gumawa or baka parents ang gumawa. Okay? So how do we go about that? How do we design assessments that will yield results to measure learning or to help improvement no, in student learning despite our setup. And yan yung pag-uusapan nito. Yan yung i-clarify sa atin ng ating esteemed no, speaker for today with Dr. Cornelia Soto. Okay, so that's why sabi nga natin, it's adaptive education kasi nag-a-adapt even our assessments into our new setup or norm or shift to education. Okay? So siguro sir, bago tayo mag-start again, just like always, no, let's just first give our usual reminders to our kaagapay.
Kala ko usual shoutouts.
Usually, mamaya tayo mag-shoutout bago natin siguro introduce ang ating speaker. Pero para lang ma-remind na kagad no ating mga audience on how okay they're going to get their certificates because as usually one of our question or one of the questions ng ating kaagapay no. Okay? So for today, teachers, don't forget that this webinar will have an evaluation link no at the end of the training or the session. Okay, so that's going to be around 11:45 to 12 p.m. That's supposedly what time we're going to finish. Okay, and after answering the evaluation, your certificates will be sent to you via email in 5 to 7 days. Okay, so pakihintay na lang po sa emails. No need for websites or Google Drive, no? Hindi po namin padala sa Google Drive yan. Kaya padala po namin yan sa email, diretso na po. Sabi ko nga Sir Jamin, like ko nire-remind, dahil ginagamit po namin yung information doon sa evaluation form. Okay? So make sure lang po tama ang ating pangalan, okay? At tama ang ating email. Okay? Kasi pag mali ang pangalan, teachers, mali din po ang pangalan nyo sa inyong certificates. Okay? Pag mali po ang inyong email, magba-bounce back po sa amin ang inyong certificates. Okay? So ang dami ko na pong na-receive ng mga certificates pabalik sa akin. Okay? That's why sometimes hindi nyo nare-receive yung mga certificates nyo because nagkakamali ng email, so bumabalik lang po sa amin yung inyong certificates. Okay, so please do not forget not to make sure or to check before clicking that submit button in our Google form evaluation later. Okay? Now,
Hey, may
or-
gusto lang akong dagdag.
go Sir Jambi.
Ay, ano to? Siguro rin it's important for us to assure our teachers, yung mga kaagapay natin na whenever you answer the evaluation links, 'di ba yun nga, we ask for certain personal information like your full name, yung email address ninyo. Rest assured po na yung information na yun ay ginagamit lang namin. Hindi ko nga ginagamit lamang ni Sir Franco para sa paggawa po ng inyong certificate. Hindi po namin yan ginagamit for any other purpose. Okay? I would like to believe that those are also properly disposed right after. Di po namin yan binebenta sa mga sa mga company, kaya hindi po kayo makaka-receive ng mga ng mga spam emails from so yan, para lang din po kayo kampante kayo na we take very good care and we value your data privacy.
Yes. Kaya yun na rin sir yung isa sa mga that's why the data are not being shared. No? Kahit po sa mga co-administrators ko po, hindi na share yan. Kasi nga po sa akin lang yan nagsistay.
Hindi
At
pa po yun.
Diba? Delete na rin po kagad namin yung mga data na yan. So, we don't have access to your data after. Okay? So, again, tama Sir Jamino, we're protecting your data privacy at all times po. Okay? And again, siguro yung ulitin ko na lang lagi din yung reminder ni Sir Jambi no, na our session for today is free. Wala po kayong kailangan bayaran. Hindi po kayo kailangan mag-sign up anywhere. I have always been seeing redirection or nire-redirect yung video natin to another website. Please do not follow those websites because our videos are always free to be replayed, reviewed in our YouTube channel. That's all lang po. Or sa ating Facebook page. Okay? So wala po kayong pupuntang ibang website, teachers. Okay? At more so, wala po kayong dapat bayaran. Okay? Kasi libre po ang ating mga webinars for all teachers. Okay?
Correct.
So siguro Sir, quickly lang let's just go with some shout out for our teachers who have been commenting already sa ating live chat Ang dami ng mga good morning. Yan, okay? And maraming salamat from Sir Jimboy Fernandez. Salamat po for the data privacy. Yan. Maraming salamat Sir Jambi for mentioning that. Okay?
O lalo na kasi ngayong panahon ng Sir Franco, ngayong panahon ng online learning. Isa sa mga pinakamahalagang bagay.
Correct no. Very important for all of us. And to si Sir Almario Sanchez from very
Wow.
lagi na Sir Almario if I'm not mistaken kasi lagi active sa chat Sir Almario. Good morning Sir Almario from Cebu Institute of Technology University.
Hello. Ayan, sana Sana okay na yung matapos na yung pandemic.
Yun, Sir Jambi, no? Actually, we've been receiving a lot of requests already, so abangan natin yun. Excited din ako.
Si Sir Wellmath. Uy, ano, pangalan mo ba yan talaga, sir? Sir
Baka
Wellmath
channel. Oo,
Channel.
channel niya to.
Pero watching from Santa Rosa, Laguna, excited to learn from this seminar.
Wow.
Dr. Soto was, wow.
So, former student ni Dr. Soto. So, we're excited. Sir,
At
mamaya na po kayo para po maalala ni Dr. Soto, no, kung anong class po kayo.
ano pala
Okay.
to eh, no? Schoolmate ni Miss Jinky.
Yes. Ito naman from Miss Iris Carcido from Gingoog City.
Saan yan, bro?
Nako, hindi ko na familiar. Miss Iris, saan ba tong Gingoog City na to?
Good morning po sa lahat watching from Talisay, Batangas, si Sir Jomel C. Atienza. Ayan. Hello, hello, sir.
Lagi din to Sir Jomel, no? Always with us. Okay. Ito naman from Miss Rochelle Carbon from good morning everyone watching from Bagong Bayan Central Elementary School, Bagong Bayan, Sultan Kudarat, Division Region 12, Socsargen. Okay.
Wow.
Grabe no, yung community natin talaga, Sir Jambi.
Correct. Speaking of community, Sir Franco, I know hindi naman natin kailangan i-remind yung ating mga kaagapay, pero para lang, baka may mga bago tayong attendees today. Ayan, wag po ninyong hindi papansinin ang ating chat box kasi yan po, that in itself is a separate webinar. Ang dami niyo pong matututunan diyan pa lang sa chat box. So, ayan, be active, share, learn from the experiences of others. Huwag kayo mahiya magtanong. Hindi man po namin masagot during the show. Hindi man po namin maitanong kay Dr. Soto. Meron at meron pong sasagot dyan sa inyo. So, yan. Thank you po sa inyong lahat. Kay Celsius Watson. China.
Teacher. I think teaching in China to si Sir Celsius.
In China.
Yes. Kasi yung Tagalog baka syempre
but the question is he in China or is he teaching online? A school in China? Oo, di ba? Nevertheless, thank you for joining us.
Okay. So tama Sir Sir Jambi kanina, no. So yung live chat po natin, sobrang active po niyan. At again, maganda talaga Sir Jambi sa live chat natin, lumalabas yung mga deep experiences. Kasi syempre, kahit magturo tayo ng mga ganitong mga webinars, yung experiences ng teachers pa rin natin, sobrang rich. Or last two siguro Sir Jambi from, this one is from Zamboanga City, Miss Parisha Musa. Okay.
Wow, Zamboanga.
Our last one, okay.
Si Sir Orlando A. Joven Jr. Good morning po, watching from SDO, Pasig City, Santa Lucia High School. Ayun, malapit na malapit. Well, hindi naman malapit na malapit.
Ano pero ito?
Compared to Zamboanga.
Yes,
Suki.
Yes. Is then
hello po.
Wag natin patagalin. Introduce natin ngayon ang ating speaker. No? Sobrang excited ako kasi I know Dr. Soto personally as well, kay Ateneo. And also, madami na siyang na mentor lalo na sa Xavier School so pagdating sa education talaga, no, so or teaching education as a course isa si Dr. Soto talaga sa mga authorities. Okay, so sana Sir Jambi, I think it's now time to introduce our speaker for today.
Sure. Ayan, glasses don't fail me now. So, ayan, dear kaagapay, it is my honor to present to you, to introduce to you our speaker for this morning who will be talking about adaptive education assessments in the virtual learning environment. So, she graduated with an ABBSE with major in natural science at St. Scholastica's College. She acquired her MA in science and math education at the Philippine Normal University and her PhD in research and evaluation at the University of the Philippines. She was a faculty member of Xavier School and Ateneo de Manila University and has served in different various positions. She has authored and coordinated textbooks in mathematics, science, language, and even led review books. In various occasions, she has served as a resource speaker, facilitator of workshops on educational leadership, tests and measurement, educational research, mathematics, art of questioning, science processes, and strategies. She has also actively engaged in different national and international educational conferences as a presenter and speaker. Karangalan ko po, mga kaagapay, Sir Franco, na ipakilala sa inyong lahat our speaker for this morning, Dr. Cornelia Soto. Good
Good
morning,
morning,
Dr.
everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today. I hope that hindi choppy because I'm receiving some choppiness in the audio. But anyway, I'm very happy to be with you today, and I saw from the chat box that our reach is not only national but international as well. Kasi we have some people from China and other places joining us.
Yes, yes,
So
Dr.
assessment will start
Ayan, Dr.
unless
Soso, maybe before we start, no, um, ah, siguro po, kumustahin muna po namin kayo. Kumusta po kayo ngayon sa gitna ng pandemya? Yan.
oh I'm busy taking care of my grandchildren. I have retired from the Ateneo because my husband got sick and he passed away last year. He had cancer of the bile duct. So now I'm keeping myself busy with. I have twin grandsons who were
Oh,
born last August 25, a month after my husband passed away. So I've retired from the Ateneo because I wanted to be with my husband on a 24/7 kind of thing. And I think it was a very good decision because he passed away 3 months after he was diagnosed with cancer. But anyway, yun. So I'm
and I think,
busy doing my apostolate.
yes. And I think, ma'am, no, na-mention niyo po last time na ito na yung magiging advocacy niyo, yung extending your expertise. And we're so,
Yes.
yes,
Uh, the University of San Agustin to give a talk last December, Center for Educational Measurement, which always invites me when it comes to research and assessments. Also contacted me and saying, "Ma'am, let's do some podcast or some webinars about assessment." So I think that will be my advocacy in my spare time to to teach and to share my experiences with teachers when it comes to assessment, research, and other forms of evaluation.
yes, ma'am. And we're glad not to be part of this advocacy, ma'am. So, ma'am, again, we can now start. Good luck po for today. And we'll be at the background to also participate in your discussion for today.
Franco and Gilbert. Okay, so for this morning, we have more or less 2 hours. We'll start with a review of what assessment is all about because we think we know assessment, but when you look at the curriculum that education students go through, there's only one course in assessment, and assessment is a very important and integral part of the teaching learning process. So we'd like to review what we know about assessment and maybe try to rethink our assessment in the virtual learning environment. Okay, so before the pandemic, the lockdown started, I was still teaching at the Ateneo, and I did a very short survey, an informal survey of what people think about assessment. So I asked parents, I asked students. Next slide, please. I asked students, I asked parents, and also I asked teachers. And what did the parents say about assessment? So I just gave them a completion kind of thing. So the assessment is, and they have to complete it. And most of the parents said, next slide please, that assessment is tests and examinations. Because siguro from the past and from what their children say, from their own experiences and from the experiences narrated by their children, assessment is seen as just composed of tests and examinations. And I think basically that's what our concept of assessment is all about. What about the students? The students were also asked, these are high school and college students which received that question, assessment is. And many of them said tests and examinations, but a few of them said the following. Next slide, please. Assessment is a form of punishment. And I said, why is that? So I had to follow up the question and say, why is that? Why is it perceived as a form of punishment? Maybe because in the past, in the elementary or high school or even in the college years, when they're unruly or not paying attention, the teacher says, okay, you did not do your homework, you're very noisy, get a whole sheet of paper, we're going to have a test. So they look at assessment as a form of punishment. So between saying, I'm going to give a 5-item quiz and maybe read 20 pages of a book, they'd rather do the reading of the 20 pages than take the 5-item quiz because they have that in their system, that assessment is a form of punishment. What about teachers? Teachers were also asked, and teachers said varied answers because the ones that I asked, so this is class, since you did not do your assignment, we'll have a test. So maybe, I don't know if you're guilty of that as a teacher or you had that experience as a student. Okay, so let's go to what teachers say about assessment. So the teachers that I surveyed are my students, and therefore they're more serious. Okay, so they say assessment is a way of diagnosing students' strengths and weaknesses, which is correct. Diba? We do assessment because we want to find out what is it that they know and what is it that they already know so that I can move on. What is it that they still need to be able to do or need to be able to know so that we can achieve the objective and so on. So that's one of the common answers of the teachers. What are the other answers of the teachers? They said it's a way of monitoring students' academic progress. And I was very happy with that answer because more recently, there was a lot of attention given to what we call formative assessment. And this is really about monitoring whether students are progressing. So we're not talking about academic excellence here. We're talking about academic progress. And therefore, when we remove the word excellence, academic excellence, the pressure on the part of the students and also on the part of the teachers kind of is minimized. Because when you say academic excellence, parang no more room for error, no more room for movement. But when you say academic progress, there's always room for improvement. And that also means that mistakes will be there, but mistakes are okay because we will try to learn from our mistakes. And I like this because in the past, when I was a student and we do our recitation and you give a wrong answer, the teacher always says, okay, who can help Cornelia? Or who can help Franco? And therefore, it becomes a little bit traumatic for students to be evaluated and to be helped by classmates or by colleagues because it seems to say you do not have the ability, you do not have the capacity to do the objective that I have set for today and so on. So when we say academic progress, I think it's much better to talk of academic progress than academic excellence, because as we said, academic progress seems to be achievable. It's looking at the academics in bite-sized pieces instead of the ideal of excellence where there is no room for error or no room for mistakes. Okay, so this is another answer of the teachers. Another one is they also said, well, administrators look at the results of exams and tests to find out if teachers are effective. So if the students are able, especially if the school has a departmental kind of exams where the individual teacher does not know what will come out in the test, then it is good to look at the results of the test to find out what are the skills that teachers have been emphasizing and what are the skills that teachers have overlooked and therefore have not been tackled, have not been talked about in the classroom. So determining whether the teacher is effective is also one reason why we do assessment. And that's why it's also stressful for the teachers when you talk of assessment. They'd rather do activities rather than evaluation and assessment. Okay, some other teachers say, well, it's a way of assigning or giving grades because we want to inform our public, the parents, the students, the community at large, the kind of education that we're giving our students. So it's a way of assigning or giving grades. And the last one, I think, is it's a way of reporting to school administrators if the class or the teacher is effective. It's similar to the other one if the teacher is effective. And the next one is it's reporting to the public if the school is effective, which is why many schools, universities, and the tertiary, the higher education institutes, usually they have a lot of tarpaulins on the walls of their campuses that say 100% passing in the whatever it is, the LET, congratulations, and so on. Or top one, our bar top notcher, or number one in the CPA board exams, because it is saying to the public that the school is doing what it's supposed to do, which is to educate, which is to train their students to become useful citizens outside of the four walls of the classroom. So that is what you call the halo effect. You want to show all these accomplishments to your public as a result of the assessment, to tell them that you are effective, that you are a good school, and therefore you send your students to us because we are a good school. We are efficient, we are effective, and we will do wonders with your children. Okay? And then, of course, one or two mentioned this. Assessment is a classroom management strategy. And I thought when I was a young teacher and I was at Xavier School, did I use tests to discipline the class? And I think, yes. I think in my younger days, I did that. Diba? When the class is unruly, you have all boys, 40 screaming, moving boys. They all look alike. They're all maputi, chinito, mataba, and you don't know who's causing the noise. Then you say, okay, I'm going to give a quiz. Everybody keeps quiet, especially if it's a math quiz or maybe a science quiz where it's very technical and they cannot, they cannot bluff their way through the tests. Okay, so it's sometimes used as a classroom management strategy, which sana hindi. Okay, so if you do not behave, I will give a test. That's what teacher says. So Black in 2014, Black and his associates is the American educator who did a meta-analysis of all kinds of research regarding evaluation and testing. And he and his team wanted to find out, do tests improve achievement? And he said that one of his greatest findings is that formative assessment is the one that improves achievement. It's not summative So we'll talk about formative and summative later. Of course, you know already what it is, but we will talk about it more lengthily. So he says that assessment is integral to the teaching learning process, but its role has always been distorted because you use it as a classroom management strategy, you use it as a punitive thing, you use it to assign grades and stop there and do not look at what else can be done with the data that we have at hand. So, so now it's especially now that we're doing more virtual and digital teaching learning, the concepts or the things that we have known about assessment need to be examined. So Close in last year wrote an article about rethinking assessment in the virtual classroom. And he said we will have to rethink the closed book, closed note assessments that we are very familiar with. And then, of course, we will have to rethink individual assessment as against team assessment or group assessment or maybe dyad or triad or quarter assessment. And then different forms of feedback. In the past, our feedback will consist mostly of, in the lower grades, they have all this well done, good job, and so on. And they have all these stamp pads, which they put on the children's hands or even in their foreheads. They have all these stars and good job and so on. So usually that's a form of feedback that they give in the lower grades. In the elementary, they have maybe still stars, but your feedback will be that when you return the test paper, or when you return the sit work, or when you return the homework that the students have submitted to you. And usually the feedback will be very good, excellent, well done, and so on. So now they're saying our feedback will have to be not only immediate, but it has also to be specific. So you don't just say, well done. What is well done? What did the student do that's very good? And what is it that the student needs to do better? So it has to be very specific to the task. And that is more important in the virtual classroom because you are not there face to face and you do not really see what the student is doing. Your student might be under the table or going to the bathroom and so on. And suddenly he's not on the screen anymore. So the feedback will have to be more specific and will have to be more contingent to the task. Okay, so we'll talk about that later as we go along. And then, of course, your different assessment delivery tools. So it used to be just paper and pencil, and sometimes the once in a while project or maybe experiment that we ask our students to do. In science, I call it the investigatory project or investigatory problem solving and so on. Okay? So let's go back to your closed book and closed note assessment. Because you have two basic kinds of tests. You have your formative test and you have your summative tests. And your formative tests are your homework, sit work, the ones which we call fixing the skills, the activities that we give our students so that they can fix the skills, they can master the skills. And therefore, these are low stakes because the students know they are not going to be graded. And if they will be graded, they know that it is not a big part of their grade and so on. So so they're saying now that we have to do more formative tests. And to be able to do formative tests well, and maybe even summative later, we will have first to develop or establish a culture of honesty in the classroom or in our virtual classroom. So you will have to explain to your students that this activity will tell me how much you know and how much you still don't know, and so on. Or maybe there's a grade You say 5 out of 5 or 6 out of 10, but you will have to tell them that if it's formative, usually it's not supposed to be included in the grade because it's still formative. It's still in the developmental process. You're still teaching, and the students are still learning, and therefore they're still in the process of achieving the objective, and therefore it is not a summative kind of thing. You do not, maybe you grade it, but you do not record it, or you do not include it in their final assessment. Okay? And therefore, when you explain that to the students, that this is for me to find out what is it that you know and what is it that you still need to know, and to develop a culture in your virtual classroom of, I don't need to cheat. I don't need to look this up to answer teacher's question. I don't need to buy a book. I don't need to download anything. So that you will first establish a culture of, I don't need to cheat. And later on, I don't want to cheat. And you can only do this if you will explain it to the students and show them that the formative things that you're asking them to do, the formative assessments that you're asking them to do, the activities that you're asking them to do, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, is part of the learning process. And therefore, if you give a grade or you give a number, it will still not impact on the final grade that they will have for the summative assessment. And hopefully, through the days, through the weeks, they will see the value to that. And they will not need to, they can ask, they can download, but they know that they're doing it because they want to learn. It's not because they want to give the correct answer to the item the teacher gave. Okay? So these two are very different things. So and we know for a fact that we want to trust our students. But if you're not there, the opportunity for doing other things will be present. And therefore, baka the culture is important. The culture of honesty is important. And therefore, that's why you will have to say, to emphasize academic progress rather than academic excellence. I think it's part of, and then to emphasize the importance of effort rather than talent. I always tell this as a math teacher. Many parents come to me and say, "Oh, ma'am, doctor, ma'am Soto, pasensya no pa kayo sa mga anak ko kasi mahina po talaga sa math, mana sa akin." And I want to dissuade you from saying that. Because math, it's reading, they are skill subjects, and skill subjects can be learned. And if it can, it's just like basketball. Pag hindi ka marunong mag-basketball, anong dapat mong gawin? Mag-practice ka. Hindi ka marunong mag-bowling, mag-practice ka. Hindi ka marunong mag-football, mag-practice ka. And you will get better. So, baka yun. So, we will have to maybe praise effort, even in our feedback. Praise effort rather than the grade. That you did very well in this because you exerted a lot of effort, not because you are truly intelligent. Kasi you say, ay, ang galing mo talaga sa math. Ay, ang galing mo talaga magbasa. That is the talent model as opposed to the effort model. And effort is a great equalizer. So baka in your development of the culture in your virtual classroom, you will have to talk about effort being valued more than talent. Kasi talent is a God-given thing. It's fatalistic. If you're good in math, good ka in math. But if you say, talagang bobo po ako sa math, that's fatalistic. Parang say, you're ready na to accept 75 and 76. But when you can do better, if you just exert a little bit more of effort. Okay? So that's part of the development of the culture of honesty in the classroom, so that you can focus on the formative activities and the formative assessments that you give your students, and know that they will do the activities because they want to learn, because they want to progress, not because they want to get a good grade. Okay? And that might be difficult. It will take a long time, but I think it bears repeating in your class or in your virtual class that you value effort more than you value talent. Okay? So that's the first one. So closed book and closed note assessment, hindi na pwede kasi nga they can always Google, they can always ask their mom or their dad or whoever is the adult in the in the surroundings. So maybe, and therefore, maybe instead of individual assessments, we will have to also rethink, aside from individual assessments, baka pwedeng team, pair, dyad, so that you will have less things to check, or maybe a group. Okay? So then also the individual, when you do individual assessment, we're very used to that. But when you do group assessment or team assessment, the question is, am I giving the appropriate grade to boy A, to student A of team 1, or to student B of team 1? How do I know what grade to give each individual student? Because each individual student contributes differently to the task. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So you will have to think, aside from teacher evaluation or teacher assigning of grades, you will have to include self-evaluation when it comes to your activities, and also peer evaluation. And then you combine all three to validate each other, to validate one another, whether the grade that you think of giving is the appropriate grade based on the self-evaluation and the peer evaluation of the teammates. Okay, we'll talk about that more in detail as we go along. So the forms of feedback, as we said, hindi na lang, they're saying, when you say excellent, very good, awesome, fascinating, wonderful, etc., they're nice to hear. But if that's the only one that you're saying, the students stop listening to it because it does not mean anything. But so your feedback must be more specific. So you say, for example, after reading their paragraphs or so, or their expository essay, then you say, the conventions of the language are good. You have good subject-verb agreement, good tenses, good use of the mechanics, punctuation, syllabication, etc. But maybe you can develop the idea further by putting more details, by putting more support, and so on. So your feedback should be more specific and it is doable. And then you give the students a chance to redo their work kasi nga academic progress, and when they give it back to you, then you look at whether they were able to follow the feedback that you gave. So feedback to be effective must be, as we said, immediate. I know this is a problem because we have a lot of things to do as teachers. I remember when I was the assistant headmaster in the Ateneo, there were 350 teachers in the grade school. So I go around on weekend, on a Friday afternoon, and I see the teachers packing up their things and putting all the bundled test papers, essay papers, paragraphs, ano ba yan? Talata, problems to be solved, and so on, and putting them in their bags. And the Monday morning when they come back, I ask naman them, kumusta? Nakapag-check ka ba? And they say, Ma'am, hindi. Ay, nako, nag-field trip lang yung, you know, we teachers, we are always optimistic. We always say, ay, uwi ko to, baka sakaling magawa ko siya, and so on. But now that we're at home, working from home, so you have a lot of, you don't see it, but it's in your laptop, it's in your hard drive, and so on. All the things are in your hard drive. So baka then you can have more time, and it will take you more time to give more specific and more contingent feedback to your students. So as we said, feedback to be effective must be immediate. So sana when the students submit their work, we're able to give feedback 1 or 2 days after. Sana. But I know that there are still a lot of things that we need to attend to. So it must be immediate, and the other one is must be specific. So it must tell the student what they're good at, must tell the students what they need to improve on. Not only study harder or do better or fail and so on. So the feedback must be more specific and must so that it will be more effective. Okay, so these are the assessment delivery tools. We'll just go through them very quickly because I know you are more techy than I am. I'm a boomer and I'm just a tourist when it comes to technology. I just go there when I really need to go to it. Okay, your assessment delivery tools will be maybe hard or soft copies of whatever. So as much as possible, we try to capitalize on digital resources because there's a lot of them around, a lot of platforms, a lot of learning management systems. But when you look at your assessment, I hope that it will be authentic. Okay? When we say authentic, what do we mean? We mean we focus on objectives that are valued outside of the four walls of the classroom. Okay, as a math teacher and as a former math coordinator, I tell my teachers, you focus on problem solving kasi that's what's important. But when I look at the tests that they do, puros computations pa rin. And they only have maybe 2 or 3 problems to solve. And so we're only giving lip service to the importance of problem solving, which is really the more important objective or goal of math education. But when you look at the test, it's all computations and 1 or 2 problems to solve. So subliminally, what is it telling our students? It's telling our students that hindi naman totoo. It's not true that problem solving is important. Computation is still important, but computation can be done by a computer. It can be done by your calculator. All your cell phones, all your smartphones have calculators in them. It can be done by that. And therefore, baka mas importante if the math teachers will explain why this algorithm works. Bakit nagagawa ng machine? And therefore, kaya natin gawin yan because we are the ones who develop these machines and so on. So baka we will have to look at the tests that you give your students, the summative tests that you give your students, the formative tests that you give your students. If you're saying problem solving is the goal of math education, you should have a lot of problems to solve. And that is why when I look at the grade 3, grade 4, grade 5 lesson plans of the math teachers, they're all about long division. For 4 months, all about long division. You tell me, I'm 68 years old. I never had to do long division except when I was in grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5. But outside, that was when I was 9, 10, and 11 years old. After that, I did not need to do long division. In my adult life, I never needed to do long division. But teachers spend a lot of time asking the students to do long division. Kasi isang long division lang, pwede ka nang maupo. But is that authentic? So that's what we mean by authenticity. It's a skill that you develop so that they will be productive and useful citizens in the world outside of the virtual classroom. So make it authentic. So another one will be many teachers, and I see this because I check their lesson plans, I check their exams, and so on. Many of the teachers use their experience as the context of their tests. Hindi na yun authentic as far as the students are concerned. So, kunyari, sa araling panlipunan, sa lower grades to ha, ang tatay ay tama o mali? Ang tatay ay umaalis tuwing umaga upang maghanap buhay. Ganun pa rin ba? Work from home na. Tapos marami ng tatay na nagtatrabaho sa call center. So, hindi siya umaalis sa umaga. Baka sa gabi siya umaalis. O ngayon, hindi na siya umaalis. So, yung text natin is authentic as far as we are concerned. But as far as our students are concerned, they're no longer authentic. They're no longer useful. That's not their context. That's not their reality. So, kunyari, math naman, also lower grades. Bakit lower grades? Kasi kinecheck ko yung mga activities ng apo ko. Okay, sabi ni teacher, write the figure that is related to the following. Dinner plate. Oh, the answer key of the teacher is circle. What did some of the students write? Square. Meron naglagay oblong. Why? Because now your dinner plates, they frequent Tokyo or whatever Japanese restaurant there is. And the plates are not usually square, are not usually round. They can be of different shapes. So that's what I mean by authenticity. You do not use your context as the context for the activities and also as the context for the tests, because the students will find it difficult because they cannot relate to it. Okay? So you will have to use their experiences and their surrounding context so that it will be more meaningful. Okay? So that's what by authenticity. So we will use the students' environment and the students' experiences. So kunyari, it's a fishing village, edi syempre tungkol sa pangingisda, tungkol sa dagat, at tungkol sa mga talaba, tungkol sa mga shell, siguro ang context natin. But do not make it the context na may snow, paminsan-minsan pwede. To tell them that there is a whole wide world outside that's very different from this village. Pero to use it in your test, baka they will not be able to relate to it. Okay? So yun. And then of course, more collaboration. And I think that's already expected. They collaborate with their classmates, they collaborate with the teacher, they collaborate with the adult at home or their tutor, if they're still a tutor, a virtual tutor or something. Okay? So these are both for formative and summative tools. Okay, let's go to, so as we said, we will not go very deeply into the different delivery assessment tools because you're more at home with it than I am. Okay, so let me just emphasize that when we do assessment, your assessment must be aligned with your objectives or with the curriculum, and that your assessment must be aligned with your strategies or methodologies, with the experiences that you made the students go through in the class, okay? So that there will be more learning that will take place. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. So that's our goal, that they will have a job after school, that companies will hire them because they have the necessary and important skills for the 21st century. Okay, so we have the same goal, the home as well as the school. That's my grandson. Okay, next please. Pogi, ano? Okay, let's just review the properties of assessment. Okay, so we have validity. That's one of the most important properties of a good assessment instrument. Okay, so I think, I don't know if it's Franco or the other one who mentioned validity, but what is validity? It is when you measure what you're supposed to measure. Okay, so when you look at the validity, you're looking at the results of the tests. Okay? When you're looking at the properties of assessment, usually you look at the assessment results. You do not, maybe you will look at the questions later, but you first look at the assessment results to find out, oh, bakit hindi nakuha ng mga bata to? How come they were not able to answer this? Okay? So maybe because it was not taught. Okay? So validity, what are the factors that affect validity? The teaching learning process, hindi naman tinuro ni teacher. Sinabi lang ni teacher, read. Read chapter 8. Test tomorrow. Okay. What's the objective of the teacher for giving the test? If test tomorrow, without any discussion, without any input from her or from me, there's a test after a new material. What will be the skills that will be tested? Kunyari, ano yun? History, ano yun? Social studies class. Read chapter 5, test tomorrow. So during the test, what is the teacher measuring? It's not about history that the teacher is measuring. It's about reading comprehension. And therefore, the test is not valid. If you're the reading teacher. If you're the reading teacher, okay. Because you're measuring reading skills. But if you're the araling panlipunan teacher, ma'am, sabi ng mga estudyante ko, ma'am, I just want to find out if they read the story. Oh, if you want to find out if they read the story, maybe not a test. Maybe you just say, summarize the chapter. Or maybe you say, write the 10 advantages or the 10 benefits or the 10 contributions of the Ming Dynasty to civilization or something. But to give a test without the teaching, baka hindi siya valid because you might be measuring some other skill that you did not intend to measure. Okay? So that can affect the validity of your test results. The directions also affect the validity of your test. So for example, which is why in all standardized tests, it's usually multiple choice, but there's always an example so that the students will not misinterpret what the direction says. Okay? So for example, I was observing this class, I think grade 1 or grade 2. And the teacher gave a set work, a summative test rather, at the end of the period. And in the direction, she says there, box the letter of the correct answer. She collected the papers. She narrated it to me after. So after she collected the papers, she found that there was a boy who did not write anything on the test paper. Okay? And so buti na lang mabait siya. So she gave the boy an emoji, yung tears, crying, because it's a 0. Buti na lang the boy is not afraid of the teacher. So sabi niya, teacher, why did you give me a crying figure? Why did you give me a 0? She was saying, I boxed and I boxed, but you did not see it. Okay? So maybe the student is more familiar with ring or encircle, the correct letter, the letter of the correct answer instead of box. Maybe he was watching Manny Pacquiao or something, and so he boxed. So the teacher gave him another chance. He said, no, I meant put in a box. And she showed an example. And so the boy got the paper back, and he got perfect. He got 10 out of 10. So your directions must be also clear. Okay? Don't just say matching type, period. Multiple choice, period. What are the students supposed to do if it's matching type? Write the letter, draw a line. If it's multiple choice, encircle, underline, write the letter, write the word. I don't know. So you will have to be specific also in your directions. And now we'll talk about later universal designs of tests. Huwag masyadong maraming sinasabi sa directions. The shorter and the more direct to the point, the better. You do not want to confuse the child because it might have impact on the validity of the test. So, I've seen a lot of tests where the teacher writes, read the problem carefully, think about it logically, blah, 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 solve, and show your solutions. It took that student maybe half a minute to read the problem carefully, think about it logically. And you just say, answer the following problem, solve the following problem, show your solutions, or encircle your final answer, or something. Okay, so make it more direct, more specific, and then the shorter, the better. If you have a choice between endeavor and try, you say try. If you have a choice between examination and test, use test because it's simpler, it's more direct, and the students will already know what it is. Okay, so you do not assume anything, especially in the directions, because they might not understand, or they might be coming from a different background. As we said, their context might be different. So your direction will affect the validity of your test. The teaching, if you taught at all, will affect the validity of your test. And of course, the content of the test item. Okay? So you will have to look at the test results to find out bakit ganito yung sagot nila. And maybe because they misunderstood your directions or they misunderstood your item. But in the final analysis, your test item must measure the objective that you set out to measure at the beginning. Okay? And therefore, you will have to look again at your learning objectives or your standards, your performance standards, and so on. So, for example, very simple example, your objective is to write capital letters. For the students will be able to write capital letters. But your test is encircle the capital letter for the following letters. Oh, that is not valid because your objective is to write. But what are you asking the students? To match or to recognize? Which is more authentic? To recognize or to write? Siyempre, to write. Because that is when they will use capital letters and small letters. So you will have to look at your test also. Does it match my objective? Our problem when I was a young teacher, I used to teach science in Xavier School. And I looked at, we teachers, we all our old lesson plans and our old tests. So when I look back at my old tests, I found that all my tests are about content. But I keep on harping about processes. Science processes, they're more important because they don't get obsolete and so on. But when I look at my tests, they're all about content. And therefore, what does it tell my students? Processes are not important. Content is more important. Okay? So you also look at you will have to make sure that your test items match your objective. Okay? So that's for validity. The second one is reliability. So reliability means dependability or consistency of the test results. Okay? So you do not talk of reliability when it comes to formative assessment. We talk of these characteristics only for the summative tests. Okay? Because nga, in formative assessment, you give your students an opportunity to redo their work because you're talking about academic progress. So these properties that we're talking about here are really about properties for summative or for grading when you want to assign a grade because of the examination or the test that you gave your students. Okay, so reliability will be consistency of the test results. Okay, and usually what will affect reliability? When your test is very long, it's more reliable. When your test is long. Now, because we're doing more performance tasks and we're doing more authentic tasks. Your problem with reliability is not on the results of the project, but on the way the teachers will look at the rubric. Okay? So the reliability there will be, are they interpreting the scoring rubric similarly? And therefore, baka this teacher is more generous by nature. He gives everybody 50 out of 50. This teacher might be less generous and she or he will give the students 40 out of 50 all the time, even if the work is really excellent. So the reliability in your authentic assessment and in your performance-based assessment will be on the reliability of the scoring rubric, not the reliability of the results. Because in performance assessment, you give the students a chance to be creative for as long as they're able to show the skills or demonstrate the skills. And the product might be different from each other. Okay, so that is reliability. So like IQ tests are reliable because they're very long. Like I've taken 3 or 4 IQ tests in my lifetime. And by the 4th time, hindi naman nag-improve yung IQ ko. It's still superior. Hindi. It's still the same. Okay? Because it's supposed to be reliable, your IQ test. And you're not able to remember all the items. You're only able to remember that there are math, there are logical reasoning, there are comprehension items, and so on. Okay? So we'll talk about the reliability of your scoring rubric later when we talk about performance assessments. Okay, the third one is fairness. Your test must be fair. And what do we mean by fairness? This is, again, I am embarking again on context. Dapat yung context ng mga bata. Okay? So when you do a test, when you give a test, especially a summative test, it must be fair. All students must go through the same conditions. Okay? Unless you have special children and so on. And therefore, what else? There must not be some bias, because that will not be fair to people. For example, I remember this many years ago, I think 2 decades ago, when I was in my 40s. I forgot, na EdPitaf ba yun? Sent me a letter asking me to write some items in math for the NAT, the National Achievement Test. Okay, so they gave me a table of specifications, so I followed it and then I submitted it to them. After 1 month, they wrote me a letter and they said, Dr. Soto, we have received your paper and they're all good, except for we have 2 suggestions about 2 items. And so I said, oh, sige, what are they? So the first one was about pork. A kilogram of, dati pa to ha, a kilogram of pork costs 110 pesos. If I buy 2.5 kilos and I paid 500 pesos, how much change will I get? Or something to that effect. And so I said, oh, sige, what seems to be the problem in this item? And they said, ma'am, the item is okay, but the pork is the one that's not okay. And I said, bakit? Kasi po, yung ating mga Muslim brothers in the South, they will not answer that question, not because they don't know how to solve it, but because there is pork. And they will feel very dirty about answering something that's about pork. Oh, so that's not fair. That's not fair as far as we are concerned, our Muslim brothers. Okay, so sabi ko, sige, change mo na to chicken para mas safe. Or fish. Okay, and so on. And the other one is about a pizza. So a box of pizza, etc. And they said, ma'am, baka hindi pa po alam ng mga nasa bundok yung pizza. But maybe now, they're still not connected to the internet. So, okay? So that's what we mean by fairness, that some people or some of your clients will not feel stressed or different, or they're being alluded to when they read your items. Okay, so that's fairness, and that they're given enough. The second one is that they're given enough time to learn the content. Okay, in the face-to-face classroom, notice ko yan, especially among math teachers. they lecture, they show examples, they ask the students to go to the board, and then towards the end of the period, they give a quiz. Sabi ko, baka part pa rin yan ng fixing the skill. Don't give a quiz, maybe tomorrow, so that they can do their homework. They have time to incubate, they have time to digest the material before you give a summative test. Okay? So, I think that's part of fairness, that you give them enough time. So, when you give your students projects or authentic assessments or performance-based assessments, do you give them enough time? Okay? Do you find out? You have to talk to the other teachers. Baka the science teacher has given a project, the math teacher has given a project, the English teacher has given a project, the Filipino teacher has given a project, the social studies teacher has given a project. If in the Catholic school, the CLE teacher has given a project, everybody's giving a project and the student has no time. Baka it's not fair for them. Okay, so that's what we mean by fairness. Okay, is it fair to tell them what the content of the test is going to be about? Dapat. It lessens the anxiety for the test if they know what the test is all about. Can you give pop tests or surprise tests? Pwede naman. Basta lang you tell them at the start of the year, I give surprise quizzes. So, you have to be ready, whether it's virtual or face-to-face. But if you're a very methodical person like me, I always announce quiz number 1 tomorrow, quiz number 2, etc. Then suddenly I give a quiz. It becomes a classroom management or a punitive exercise for them. And that is not fair. Okay, so you will have to tell them that I give surprise quizzes, whether it's virtual or in your blended classroom. Okay? Next, number 4 is impact. What's impact? What is the effect of the test on the students? Okay? The effect should be that they welcome it because they will know what is it that they can do and what is it that they cannot do. And impact also on the teacher because the teacher will know, ay, hindi ko yata na-explain ng gusto to. Hindi ko yata to naturo and therefore maybe I will have to reteach. So that is the effect of the test results on the teacher and also on the students and maybe on the guardians because now a lot of the students have their parents also at home and they're able to monitor their sons and daughters as well. Okay? And the last one will be the use of resources. Okay? So, yan, that you give them the opportunity to use resources because they will be able to answer your questions or to answer your test by using the different resources that are available to them. Maybe that is what your test is all about, not the content, because the content you can always Google. So these are now the 5 important properties of summative assessments, of examinations or tests that are meant for grading. Okay? So let's go to the next slide. So these are the modern perspectives on classroom assessment. I think they have not changed since 2014, even if it's 7 years ago. So now there's a focus on summative assessment. We cannot do away with it because we want to tell our parents, we want to tell our principal, we want to tell our community, our public, what we are able to accomplish, whether we are able to accomplish the goals of the different subjects that we're teaching, that we're making the students develop the skills that they need to be productive and to be useful citizens in the world. So summative assessment will still be there. So your summative assessment will be assessment that you give at the end of a teaching period, or it can be a day, it can be a week, it can be a quarter, it can be a semester, or it can be a whole year when you give an achievement test and so on. So summative test is sometimes called assessment of learning because you want to find out what has the students learned, what have the students learned. And then the second one is formative assessment. I think you know that. That's formative from the root word form. The students are still in the process of learning. learning, you're still teaching. So it is developmental in nature. So as we said, we talk of academic progress here and not academic excellence. So Black has a very often quoted sentence about it. He says, the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment is similar to a chef and a broth. So when the chef tastes the broth or the soup, that is formative assessment because he can still do something about it. He can add more water, add more salt, add more condiments, or add more spices. But when the customer eats the soup, that is summative assessment because you cannot do anything about it. It's already done. Okay? So that's summative and formative. Then, of course, you know what performance-based assessment is. So it's assessment where the students show a skill, demonstrate a skill, or when the students do a product. So all writing exercises, like when you ask them to write a paragraph, write an essay, write a short story, write a play, these are all performance based because writing asks them to apply all the things, all the rules, all the conventions of the language that they have learned, and then also the content. So it's performance based. Okay, so it can be a product, like when you ask them to do a diorama or a poster or an advertisement about a new product or a song or a program in their computer class or like a one-page newsletter and so on. So that's performance-based. And then you have authentic assessment. We have mentioned that a while ago. We'll end after this. Authentic assessment is when you assess assess a skill that is similar to what they will meet outside of the four walls of the classroom, of your virtual classroom. So it's authentic because it is a skill that's needed not only in the virtual classroom, but also outside of the classroom. Okay? So all authentic assessments are performance-based, but not all performance-based are authentic. Some of them are make-believe. Okay? So then you have standards-based assessments. If you look at the grading system now of DepEd, it's standards-based. So you say proficient, approaching proficiency, very proficient, beginning proficiency, and so on. So you have a criterion, you set a criterion of mastery. And when the students reach that, then you say, he is already proficient in this skill. Okay, so that's standards based. And then you have the universal test design. The universal test designs started, we copied it from the field of architecture and engineering. In 1970, there was an architect by the name of Ron Mace from North Carolina. He was in charge of approving building permits in the state of North Carolina. So he moves from county to county, checking on the structural blah blah strength of buildings and whether the buildings follow the guidelines set by the North Carolina state. And in his trips, he noticed that most of the buildings are not accessible to people with disabilities. Now we call them people who are differently able. So he said, this is wrong. All buildings must be accessible to everybody. So he said it must be universally accessible. So it must be universally accessible to all. So he suggested, he wrote a new set of guidelines where he said there should be ramps for people with wheelchairs and so on. And if it's 5 stories and above, there should already be an elevator and so on. So that is universal design in architecture or of buildings. And then the different disciplines started to adopt the universal design of things. And in education, we adopted it by doing it in our tests. So our tests must be accessible to all kinds of students, whether they are your able students or your differently abled students. Okay? So this is your universal design. And some of the suggestions will be that you should not crowd your test. So it should be 50% black and 50% white. Do not put them all together. Anyway, even if you use so many slides, the cost will be the same. Okay? So that's universal test design. And then for directions, as I said a while ago, make it short, make it simple, make it direct. And then the third one is accommodate. Accommodate the differently abled students. So if you have a student who's visually impaired, you don't give him a test. You read the test to him. So maybe you accommodate by changing the procedure, but the content of the test is still the same. Okay? So I think it's 11:25. And according to Franco, we have some kind of a break. So we have a break and then we will continue after maybe 15 minutes. Thank you. Franco, take it away.
Yes, Dr. Soto, no. Actually, Dr. Soto, ano lang to, it will be our time to entertain some of the comments and feedback, no, or questions
Yeah, okay.
from our audience. And actually, Dr. Soto, if you could see, very live ulit po. Buhay na buhay po ang ating live chat, no. Ang dami pong sharings and input ng ating mga teacher, mga personal experiences nila
Okay.
and mga ginagawa po nila sa classroom. And also mga reactions po, no, sa inyong mga insights. Okay. So teachers, if you have questions or clarifications, you might want to ask now Dr. Soto about your questions. Okay. Although Sir Jambi, okay, baka meron kang, ikaw ba may personal question or reaction?
Hindi ako sobrang natutuwa ako kasi wala namang I mean, si Dr. Soto is not really presenting anything that we never knew before. Diba? Yung hindi pa natin natutunan when we were attending our edu courses. But it's really nice to just be reminded of these things. Tapos the whole time nga parang I feel blessed about this webinar kasi parang it's like you were given the chance to sit down for 2 hours with the most senior member of your school. Tapos, ma'am, bigyan niyo naman po ako ng mga tips. Tapos talagang ina-absorb mo talaga lahat ng mga experiences and mga tips. So sobrang nakakatuwa tong webinar na to. Thank you very much po, Dr. Soto.
Yan. Actually,
You're
Dr. Soto,
welcome.
wala pong masyadong
Pleasure.
yeah. Wala pong questions sa ating no. Actually puro phrases like thank you Dr. Soto, thank you for this webinar. Although teachers na meron pa tayong input pa, madami pang input si Dr. Soto for today. Although Dr. Soto, we given our time our time constraint po. So we'll see po how we can up to what po yung matatapos siguro po for our presentation for today. Pero sa Dr. Soto, so far wala naman pong questions, only reactions. Okay? Ayan, ito po may isang question from Mr. Ganaden.
Do we need to test our teacher-made assessments for validity and reliability? We are preparing at least 5 summative assessments per quarter. As I said, are you talking about item analysis? Baka hindi. I don't know, it really depends on your administrators. Because everything is new and therefore, baka you need to look at your test items and see whether they're valid, validity, okay? So how can you address the question of validity? Show it to somebody before you give the test to your students, actually, or maybe in your module. Show it to somebody so that somebody who's also in that field. So, kunyari, you're a math teacher, show it to another matcher. He or she might have an insight when he goes through your items, might say, ay, parang ang hirap naman ito, hindi ito pang grade 5, pang high school na to, mga ganyan. Or maybe this one is the directions are not very clear. So it's always good to show it to somebody. If I know you're supposed to submit it to your principal or to your coordinator. I don't know now in the digital learning environment if you still do that, and then yun. So have somebody check on the test so that you're assured of validity, at least of the content of the items. But as we said, you really talk of validity in terms of the results of the test. Okay? So you have to look at the results of your test and find out.
Naputol yata si Dr. Soto. Okay, okay. I think Sir Jambi nagkakaroon lang ng connection problem si Dr. Soto. Maybe we'll just wait for her yan. And Dr. Soto, your audio is not clear po so far. I think there's a connection problem.
Sir Franco, maybe i-out muna natin saglit si
Yes,
si
we'll,
Dr. Soto.
yes po.
Yan. Nilakihan mo naman.
We'll so, hintayin lang po so far para mag-stabilize lang yung signal.
Tsaka
I
bigyan
think,
din natin ng bigyan din natin ng health break si Dr. Soto. Baka kailangan niyang
yes. Actually, itong ni Miss Teresa, dapat naman talaga na chine-check lagi natin yung validity and reliability. Kaya lang, syempre, Miss Teresa, yung measurement nito would be, well, partly as a design din, pero syempre, nakikita rin natin to syempre sa results ng test natin. Kung talagang na-measure niyo dapat tapos siguro alignment, okay? I-check mo yung alignment niya into sabi nga ni Dr. Soto kanina na dapat ang ating mga assessments ay aligned sa ating curriculum, sa ating instruction, etc. So doon mo siya i-measure no, vis-a-vis other components of your education to be able to measure validity and reliability. Okay? We'll just wait no habang yung signal ni Dr. Soto. Siguro one more question, okay, from our audience, okay?
Oo. Susubukin pong sagutin ni Sir Franco.
Mahirap po yan. No? We'll see po kasi mukhang okay naman na yung signal ni Dr. Soto. We'll just invite her again into our
Di, alam mo kasi nakakatuwa Sir Franco. Parang parang this webinar in particular gave everyone a chance to reflect.
Yes,
diba?
correct.
On things na ginagawa natin, on things na baka nakaligtaan natin na mahalaga pa rin during the time of the pandemic. So, yun, kaya ang active talaga nung chat group. And sige lang po, tuloy niyo lang po 'yan. Huwag po kayo mahiyang mag-share, huwag kayo mahiyang magtanong, magbigay ng examples. O yan, may question Sir Franco. Considering po na ang ilang MELC ay nag-encourage ng groupings, yan, paano po kaya natin ito maa-assess kung distance or modular learning? Yung distance na online, baka magawan mo pa ng paraan, pero paano nga ba yung modular, Sir Franco?
Sa modular, madami namang ways. Yes. Kasi sa atin, for example, no, yung mga tools natin, syempre, promote natin yung Google, no? Lahat ng mga, for example, mga Google for Education tools natin, Google Sites, Google Slides, Google Documents, lahat yan can facilitate collaborative learning collaborative learning despite being virtually or in a virtual setting. Kasi for example, pwede kang magbigay ng document na they can edit all together, they work on the same essay, or they can work on the same slides. And maganda dito, for example, nakikita mo yung history nila. So, huli yung mga estudyanteng walang contribution. So, yung mga teachers natin lagi na nagmo-monitor ng gaano kadaming contribute mo, etc. We can actually facilitate that using these different tools. So, pwede po, no? Actually, mas mataas pa nga actually yung possibility ng mas engage at saka authentic collaboration sa distance learning setup dahil nga dun sa mga tools na meron tayo. So, very, very possible although siguro pinaka-challenge nito Sir Jambi, if yun nga like ko sinasabi no, nasa ang distance more na distance modality ka. Kung nasa online ka, possible 'yan. Pag nasa remote learning ka, yung the hybrid blended learning natin, less yung possibility mo. Pag nasa remote study ka, yung naka-printed module, sobrang hirap na niyan unless nagpa-facilitate ka ng activities via Messenger. Okay, so depending on your modality also decreases your ability no to facilitate, or it makes it harder to facilitate collaborative learning, but it's in no way na hindi siya possible. It's always possible.
Tsaka give your ano rin po, give things that you do in your schools. Ayan, yung tanong naman na po yun ay hindi lang para masagot ni Dr. Soto or masagot ni Sir Franco, pero para tayo-tayo rin po mismo magbigay tayo ng mga ano natin, ng mga karanasan natin.
Yes, Sir Jambi, tingnan natin kung okay na yung signal ni Dr. Soto. Let's put her back
Sure.
in. Dr. Soto, yan. Dr. Soto, naghang lang po kanina. That's why we try to manage first. Sino? Nagkakaroon yata ng problem pa rin sa connection si Dr. Soto. Yan. We'll just wait again. Okay, we'll see. Okay, so Sir Jambi, maybe we could again entertain some more other questions while we're waiting for ito kay Sir Rodantes Rivera. Yan.
Does doing item analysis, or is it an effective way of assessing the validity and reliability of assessment in this kind of teaching modality?
Item analysis. Actually, ako personally, sir, hindi masyado. Okay? Well, makakatulong pa rin yan, no, yung item analysis natin, Sir Jamie. Pero kasi, item analysis kasi is good lang kapag meron tayo, pag nagme-measure tayo, for example, ng mga recalling, remembering items or concepts. Kailangan, di ba yung sasabi nga natin, sa distance learning modality, mahirap na puro objective questions ka. Kaya nga sasabi ni Dr. Soto kanina, yung mag-promote tayo ng authentic learning by providing context, providing situation, mga performance-based assessments, mga ginagamitan ng rubrics. Kasi kapag yung item analysis ginagamit yun sa mga multiple choice, gano'ng kadami yung tama mo, alin yung items. Pero kasi, yung mga ganyang items, madali yung ma-intervene no, sa distance learning modality. Who knows, mamaya tutor pa lang sumagot niyan. So kahit ilang beses mong i-item analysis yan, hindi magre-reflect dyan yung student learning. Okay. So, possible, it will determine, pero hindi ganun ka taas yung authenticity no, nung student learning kapag lalo na sa distance learning modality. Okay?
Okay.
Yun. Okay. Let's invite again. Let's check. Okay na. Yan. Toto, are you okay now with your, yes. Kasi nagkakaproblema po ma'am kanina sa signal. I think we can't hear you clearly. Yeah. Medyo nagkakaroon, naghang pa din si Dr. Soto, no? We'll see kung, oo. So, for a while po, teachers, no?
Usually kasi ata Sir Franco pag mga ganitong oras, medyo nagiging heavy yung yung gamit ng mga tao ng internet. Meanwhile, alam niyo po, mag-share na lang muna ako, Sir Franco, habang hindi, i-share ko lang po yung aking pinagmumuni-munihan kanina habang pinakikinggan natin si Dr. Soto. Baka rin po meron kayong maidagdag sa aking reflection. Una, again, 'di ba, aminin natin, wala naman talagang walang bagong konsepto na ipinresent sa atin si Dr. Soto, bagkus pinaalala niya sa atin, maybe for some, kinorekt yung ating misconceptions. Pero ang naisip ko, maybe, just maybe, it also has something to do with how we perceive assessment, with how we perceive tests. Kasi kahit tayo on a personal level, yung mga teachers, 'di ba? Ah, we use tests or we use quizzes for various reasons. Yung mga sinishare kanina ni Dr. Soto na gusto mong tumahimik yung class, yan, sige, nagpapatest ka. Or gusto mong mahuli kung sino yung hindi nagbasa ng reading, sige, nagpapatest ka. Um, Sige, while those are, yun nga, mga classroom management strategies that we use, to a certain extent, baka hindi lang natin namamalayan na yung konsepto ng test, yung konsepto ng assessment for our students, nagiging siyang negative na. Okay? In the first place, hindi naman sila lahat dumaan or hindi pa sila dumadaan ng mga napag-aralan natin sa educational classes, sa edu classes. Ah, and if you think about it, kahit nga tayo to a certain extent na nag-aral na ng assessment, natanggap na natin na not all assessments are graded, 'di ba? Most, if na many are actually designed to test how much you know, how much help you need pa, how much support you need. Ah, kahit tayong mga teachers, pag sinabi ng mga administrators natin na, sige, i-assess natin, kinakabahan din tayo. So, may to a certain extent, kahit sa atin, because of our experience growing up, because of our school experience, parang nagiging very negative na yung tingin natin sa assessment, sa test, na nababawasan yung potential niya na tulungan yung mga estudyante and tayo rin to improve, to progress. So, may challenge ako sa ating mga kaagapay, to myself even, kay Sir Franco tsaka kay Sir Angelo. Baka naman pwede starting Monday siguro, consciously lang natin na i gawing less negative, maybe even more positive yung pagtingin ng mga estudyante sa tests, sa assessments. It's the words that we use, how we use them, how we say them, when we say them, di ba? So, para pagtingin gusto natin dumating yung time na, okay class, could you please be ready for a 5-item quiz? Yung gusto natin na excite yung mga bata. Kasi alam nila, ay, okay, malalaman ni ma'am how much I know. Ayan. Or, okay, malalaman ni ma'am na hindi ko pa talaga masyadong naiintindihan yung lesson. Mas matutulungan niya ako. So, sobrang mababago. I think mababago yung takbo ng pagtingin ng teachers tsaka ng mga estudyante sa assessment. Pagka yun lang yung the conscious effort to make tests and assessments not something to be feared. 'Di ba, Sir Franco?
Yes, agree na Sir Jambi. Isa yun sa mga nabanggit ko rin before, no? Kasi I had a session last Thursday and sinabi ko sa mga teachers, we have to change the culture on how students
Correct.
perceive assessments. Kasi hangga't ang assessments are loaded by judgments. Kasi for example, 'di ba, kung 75 ka at hanggang doon, yung sabi ni Dr. Soto kanina, na kailangan pag nagbigay ka ng feedback, hindi number lang. What to do with the number, for example. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Kailangan meron siyang very specific and actionable, sabi nga ni Dr. Soto kanina. Hindi puwedeng, for example, you're 20 out of 45. So what does it mean? Anong gagawin ng student dun sa 20 out of 45? So you'll have to give them something to do after they receive the result. So that the test becomes more, like sabi nga Dr. Soto, formative, because the formative assessments, no, helps our students develop learning more, okay, or independent learning. Okay? Parang reflection din sa kanilang mga sarili. Okay? I think okay na si Dr. Soto, no? We'll welcome her again back into our stream. Okay? Nagkakaroon lang ng problem daw sa Wi-Fi si Dr. Soto. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yan, I think yan. Dr. Soto, welcome back.
Hello po.
Very nagkakaroon ng again, that's normal, Sir Jambi, no? Having
Bahagi
connection
yan.
problems.
Oo.
Bahagi yan ng
Nag-a-assess din tayo ngayon ng ating
new norm. Okay. So let's see. Yan. We're just waiting na teachers. Kapag meron po kayong mga questions, concerns, okay, please do let us know sa ating chat box, no, while we're waiting for Dr. Soto's signal to
Yes.
stabilize.
Meanwhile, Sir Franco, thank you po sa mga thank you po sa mga mag-a-accept ng challenge na pinost natin kanina. Let's value effort over talent when it comes to assessment.
Yeah, can we highlight that one from Miss Carol Justin Istudillo? Let's value
Correct.
effort.
Kasi gaya nga ng sabi ni Dr. Soto kanina, 'di ba? Pagdating naman sa real life, pagdating natin sa ikaw, kunyari naging boss ka and you have 2 workers, ikaw rin naman mas binavalue mo yung yung nagpapakita ng effort over dun sa magaling lang. So bakit pag tinetest natin, mas binavalue mo yung the other way around?
Yes, correct. So we'll have to be consistent in Sir Javi siguro. Okay. So let's give the floor back to Dr. Soto to continue her discussion. All the teachers, no, just a heads up, maybe we'll be extending a little bit for Dr. Soto to discuss, no, as much as she can po. Medyo mahaba pa yung discussion, no, although I think Dr. Soto will try to shorten it for us this afternoon. Okay. Dr. Soto? Dr. Soto, your audio, I think, your microphone. We can still hear you, Dr. Soto. For a while po, no, let's just wait for Dr. Soto's audio to come in. Yeah, wala pa rin po, Dr. Soto. Yes, I think it has something to do with the earphones, Dr. Soto. You might want to remove that. It's not coming in. We'll just wait for Dr. Soto's signal na to stabilize. No? Yan. Now, if ever teachers, no, if ever po hindi natin talaga matapos yung full presentation for today, we'll ask for Dr. Soto's presentation to be uploaded para po meron pa rin tayong reference. But I think madami naman ang naging input, no, si Dr. Soto for this morning's session. Okay, so we'll just again, we're unfortunate lang siguro na nagkakaroon ng problem sa connection. Sayang pa naman, no, ang napakaganda ng discussion ni Dr. Soto. At again,
Ay,
Sir Jambi.
Ako, meron pala ako naisip. Sorry,
Yes.
baka makalimutan ko lang. Kanina kasi, di ba, Dr. Soto was mentioning about how this can become her new advocacy, especially during her spare time. Maybe Sir Franco, baka pwede natin makausap si Dr. Soto siguro separately para matulungan natin siya sa kanyang sa kanyang technical needs.
Yes, tayo naman.
Ma-assist natin si Dr. Soto. So
Yes.
kasi yun yung magagawa natin eh.
Totoo. Mag-set up tayo ng YouTube channel for Dr. Soto,
Oo,
etc.
'di ba? Matulungan natin si Dr. Soto na alam naman nating mas makakatulong pa sa mas marami nating mga kaagapay.
So, we'll set up things for Dr. Soto, no, for her advocacy, no, to help other teachers as well.
Baka may
Kasi
kailangan siyang gamit, kailangan natin siya maturuan how to use certain things. Ayan, we got you, Dr. Soto.
yes, we will definitely do that. Napakagandang suggestion, Sir Jambi. I think napasmile si Dr. Soto, no. I think na-excited siya dun sa thought on finally again, madami sa atin mga nag-venture, no, into distance learning, into technology integration, etc. during the distance learning, okay, because of our setup, no. Okay? So yan. Okay. Will Sir Jambi, will just see something again and help Dr. Soto in the backstage.
Sure, sure. Ayan. Sige po. Meanwhile, I'll read yung mga comments po nila. Sabi ni Miss Maricor Banez, I observed that they copied the answers in the key answers at the end of their modules. Parents pa ang nagsusulat sa answer sheets ng kanilang mga anak. Totoo. That is a reality that we have to we have to face, and we have to siguro look for creative ways to address. Ayan, baka po may maisa-suggest kayo. Try ko rin po mag-isip ng mga creative ways by which maiwasan yon, diba? Sana po matuloy yung isang magandang po siguro diyan, magandang way by which we can address that is yung pinag-uusapan po namin ni Sir Franco last week, na baka kailangan din na magkaroon po ng webinar for our parents tungkol sa yung natin, Sir Franco, last week. Nakalimutan ko yung complete term. Yung gradual release of responsibility. Tama ba yung term ko?
Yes, correct. Okay. Kasi tingnan natin kung kasi syempre sila yung nasa bahay, so dapat alam din nila yung gradual release of responsibility, no, para to develop independence na sa mga students natin. Okay? Kasi kapag syempre teachers, nagagawa natin yan sa classroom, kaya lang since limited tayo, wala tayong face-to-face learning right now, magiging problem. Okay? So yan, na-excite na rin si Miss Arlene Alberto sa YouTube channel ni Dr. Soto. We'll see how we can go about that. And so, Dr.
Ano lang po natin, i-offer lang natin kay Dr. Soto.
Yes,
Kung
i-offer
gusto
niya.
niya lang.
Yes, parang hindi natin pressure kasi syempre ini-enjoy na rin ni Dr. Soto ang kanyang Dr. Soto have served for so long sa ibang teachers, training other teachers, supervising other teachers, okay, and in so many ways, no, naging professor din, etc. So she had served a lot, so she actually enjoying her time already. So but then we'll just see kung may time si Dr. Soto to actually venture into YouTube, no. Baka ito na ating next YouTube sensation, okay?
Gagawa kayo ng video, Sir Frank, ng mga 2 a.m.
Yes. So we'll see po, no, yung webinar for parents, no. Will facilitate 1K maybe for the parents. And so but teachers, no, we'll have to ask for your support kasi kapag mag-facilitate kami ng ganun, you'll have to invite your parents kasi syempre pong mga nasa community natin are all teachers. Although marami rin sa kanila parents, pero we'd like to invite parents na wala sa education sa education, okay? So para mas matulungan natin silang tulungan yung kanilang mga anak, okay? So Sir Jambi, I think hindi natin ma-pursue yung talk ni Dr. Soto for today. We'll maybe reschedule a continuation of her talk, okay? Kasi ang haba pa nito, no? Ang dami pa nitong pwedeng
maging. Sir Franco, yan ang tinatawag na blessing in disguise.
Yes.
Kasi baka kung hindi nangyari yan, hindi natin biglang maiisip yung, teka, bakit nga hindi tayo gumawa ng YouTube channel para kay Dr. Soto, or matulungan natin siya sa kanyang mga technical needs. So,
yes.
yeah.
Sir Jump, ito rin siguro yung reality, no? Na, I mean, madami din talaga kasi na hindi basta-basta syempre naka-ease in dun sa distance learning modality, no? In terms of like use of technology. So that shows us what we still need to do. Okay, that's why we're going to continue this advocacy. And ayan, madami na yung natutuwa sir sa suggestion mo on the parents. So that will definitely be part of our most likely February series natin to. Magiging part ng February series natin. So we'll see. But again, teachers, we ask for your help, no? Pag po ni-launch namin to for the
Mm.
parents, we'll have to ask you to invite your parents, okay? To gather your parents, okay? So that we can all help them.
Kailangan kasi kailangan bumalik Sir Franco yung way of thinking na the parents are partners. Hindi
Yes,
sila
correct.
hindi sila we're not on opposing sides.
Yes, dapat mas strengthen natin yung homeschool collaboration more than ever. We've been working on that for the longest time, no. But since it siguro is sa mga benefit ng distance learning na realize natin kung gaano nga ba ka-importante ang
Baka may
homeschool.
mga parents din na gusto maging Google certified educators.
Sama-sama na, no, we'll package it as a whole na, no. Siguro not only about GRR, it's all about responsibility, tips and techniques on distance learning for their kids, managing online classes. Okay, so we'll just put it all together, possibly get 3 to 4 speakers, no, for our
Pati
parents.
mental health ng mga magulang.
Correct, yes, indeed, no.
Oo.
Personally experience natin yan, gaano
Kawawa
ka-stress.
rin, kawawa rin naman din talaga yung mga magulang. I'm sure many of our teacher parents would agree. 'Di ba? Nakaka-stress din yung parent hat mo whenever you wear your parent hat.
Yes, we'll try to facilitate. Nakaka-excite nga 'to. Bigla ako na-excite din Sir Jambi, no, to offer this to our teachers and also to our parents. Kasi pag natulungan natin yung mga parents natin, Sir Jambi, definitely matutulungan natin ang ating mga
Correct. Correct.
uh,
Correct.
teachers din. So Sir Jambi, since hindi natin mapupursue, no, tsaka ayaw na rin natin mag-overtime, it's already almost lunch, okay? So just give some reminders first, okay? Again, we'll be giving your evaluation link already since we're almost half naman na to the discussion. I think marami na tayong naging input for today, okay? So we'll be giving your evaluation link and please make sure to accomplish it, okay? To be able to receive your certificates, okay? Make sure to check your data, your names, all the things that you have, your emails, okay? Because that will be used to deliver and to create your certificates, okay? And please do give us around 5 to 7 days, okay? Things are already also getting busy in some other aspects of our lives, no? Sir Jambi and I. So please do give us 5 to 7 days to be able to deliver your certificates to you, okay? Will be delivered by your email, so no need to search for websites or download anything. We'll be sending it directly to your email address. Okay. Okay, so Sir Jambi, I think we're now ready, no? We'll still be entertaining some questions, okay? If needed, no? But we'll be giving them their evaluation link already, okay? But before we do that, okay, we'll just still see if we can still invite Dr. Soto back, no? For some siguro, ano na lang,
Final word.
discussion. Yes, discussion on other things na pwede pa nating mapag-usapan about assessments in a virtual learning environment. Okay, we'll just do a interview with Dr. Soto. Okay, I think
Yeah.
Dr. Soto is trying to enter using a different device, so we'll see about that. Okay, for the meantime, teachers, while we're at it, no, here's your evaluation already. Also, Sir Jambi and I will be staying to discuss other things, no. If
Correct.
you would still
Sir Franco kay Sir Nathaniel Guido, ano ba? Should he check his spam folder? Baka doon
um
napunta yung
yes, saan ang question ni Sir ano?
Yun, I have yet to receive my certificate last webinar.
Yes, if that's the case, for example, number one, check your spam folder, okay? Because we're sending hundreds and thousands of certificates in a given time. So usually natatag tayo ni Gmail as spam, okay? Nilalagay tayo sa spam ni Gmail. But if, for example, wala pa rin po doon, just send us an email to Kaagapay Teacher Support, okay? We usually reply naman in 1 to 2 days, okay? Depending on our schedule. and we send you directly your certificates. If we validate that you indeed provided an evaluation. Okay, so may database naman po kami as mentioned by Sir Jumpy, no, we receive your evaluations. Kapag nandun po sa database namin yun, makikita po kagad namin yung pangalan nyo. Okay? Yes. Okay, we'll take note of some other suggestion. Okay? Miss Leila, yan, no? Lalo na si Miss Leila. Miss Leila, just send us a message, okay, and we'll send it to your email.
Si Miss Leila. Nag-test na ba si Miss Leila?
Oo. Kasi hindi yan nakaka-miss si Miss Leila ng
Oo.
kanyang mga assessment, okay? Ng kanyang evaluation. Okay? Kahit sobrang busy niyan, okay? Yan. Sir, sir, baka pwede po magkaroon, Sir Franco, ng webinar about how to implement skill-based subjects sa distance learning. Ay, Sir Louis, do check our may series tayo. Meron tayong webinar on specific subject areas, okay? Skill-based subjects sa distance learning. Okay, nagkaroon po tayo dyan ng massive webinar with breakout sessions. Okay, we didn't even can't remember na how we pulled it off, pero we did, no? And nakita po yan sa YouTube channel, sir, no? Piliin nyo lang po yung subject matter na yung subject matter nyo po. Yes. Okay, maraming salamat po. Yes, true that it's possible to learn as help from others to answer assessments. Ngayon, yung isa sa mga problems, sir, ng ating mga teachers, no, yung integrity ng kanilang test.
Kaya i-empower natin yung mga parents kasi minsan hindi lang din naman nila alam how to respond. Diba?
Correct. Tsaka yun nga, Sir Javi, sabi natin kanina, no, you'll have to change how they view assessments. They do
Correct.
that because there's like may stigma ang failing sa assessment. Okay? Pero pag natanggal natin yun, although hindi natin magagawa yan dahan-dahan talaga, gradual talaga. No? You'll have to build it's a cultural thing. So you'll have to build it. So
kasi alam mo, Sir Franco, alam mo how we know na it's taken on a very negative feel for us kahit pre-test na nate-tense tayo, na anxious tayo about pre-tests. Tayo nga teachers na alam na natin na na yung pre-test ay para lang ma-measure kung ano pa yung kailangan mong malaman, it's in no way graded, etc. So yun, dun pa lang alam mo na kailangan talaga ng pagbabago ng perspective.
Yes, naalala ni Sir Louis. Sir Louis, rin to our constant kaagapay din. Yes, Sir Louis, just check that out in our YouTube channel. Okay. So yun, madami pang madami tayong mga kailangan pa talagang again, let's be not too hard on ourselves, no. Although alam natin yung assessments, pero talagang kailangan din nating ibaliin at i-reframe, no, how we look at assessment and how we design assessments. Kasi dahil nagbago yung situation natin, dapat normally magbabago din dapat on how we approach assessments. Hindi pwedeng copy and paste ang ating mga assessments from our traditional setup going to our to distance learning setup. And as we always reminded you teachers, no, ni Sir Jambi, pag pinag-uusapan natin itong mga changes na to, hindi to ngayon lang. Okay, so yung example lang, pag-aaralan ko to kasi kailangan ko to ngayon. Okay, dapat ang approach natin dito is that we have to learn all of these things, no, how we design assessments for distance learning, because this is our future, no. Possibly distance learning is the direction we're heading in terms of education. Might not be full online every time, but we're definitely going to see a hybrid set, no, that combines maybe a face-to-face setup and a distance learning. Yes. So, hindi, ang sabi ko nga lagi, Sir Jumpy, paalala ko sa kanila, si pandemic, hindi naman niya inintroduce ang distance learning. Ang distance learning is already there even before. Ang ginawa lang niya is talagang hinisen niya or pinabilis lang ni pandemic yung transition natin to distance learning. But we've been moving towards distance learning decades, no, prior to the pandemic. Yes. Ito si Miss Sarah Jane Langkaon. Sir, meron po ba kayong webinar on how to use ng Kahoot gamification, yung pwede pong gamitin sa activities in online? Sir Jambi, wala tayong full, pero meron tayong mga introduction. Okay? Uh,
Okay.
yes.
Favorite ko yung Kahoot.
Pero madali
La-
naman siyang gamitin, no? But
lalo,
I think,
lalo na yung music niya.
yes, kaya nakakaano siya, nakakaaliw. Sir Jamie, baka I think ang meant dito ni Miss Sarah Jane is yung gamification as a concept. Meron po tayo, no? It was a webinar we gave last, I think, September, when we had developing interactive lessons for distance learning. So again, tingnan lang po natin sa ating YouTube channel. No? Nandun lang po yan. Okay. Okay, mukhang wala naman na tayong questions. Okay.
Si Sir Eric Covillano, email nyo na lang po email nyo na lang po yung KTS na ano.
Yes. Sir Eric kaagapaytc@gmail.com. Okay. Kaagapay, take care. Sa mga tatanong ko, bakit po kaagapay TC po ang ibig sabihin? Kaagapay, take care po talaga ibig sabihin nun. Or kaagapay,
pa.
teacher's care.
Kaagapay,
Teacher's
take
care. Okay, so kasi bakit kaagapay TC? No? Anyway, pinapaano lang namin, pinapagaan lang namin pakiramdam ng mga teachers. Yan, welcome po. Maraming salamat. Actually, teachers, no, natutuwa na yung mga teachers and welcome po sa appreciation nyo. Pero dahil naputo lang po si Dr. Soto, nagka-problema sa signal. Yung pong input niya, by the way, it's just 1/5 of the entire, no? So,
oh my goodness. Wow.
It is a massive, kasi nakuha ko yung presentation niya. So, it's a massive presentation that she prepared for all of us. Okay?
Sir Franco, kausapin mo na talaga si Dr. Soto. Tutulungan natin siya.
Yes, we'll do. Okay, we'll do. We'll assist Dr. Soto to be able to continue her advocacy. Okay, so teachers, I think we can safely end here. And we thank you once again for being with us. Okay, please do continue if you haven't done your evaluation. It's http://bit.ly/January series P3. Marami na po nakapag-evaluate, so I think it's working. Safe to say that's working. Okay, we always do check that. Okay. And again, the evaluation will last up to Monday, 8 p.m. Okay, we always extend Sir Jambi, no, kasi alam natin yung mga teachers natin are busy. Not all of us in the community are here right now, no. So we give them opportunity to still evaluate and watch the replay. As always.
And just in case meron po kayong mga very specific concerns, you know where to email, kaagapay@gmail.com.
Pero Sir Jambi, pag nagpo-post tayo dun sa Kaagapay teacher support page natin, pwede sila mag-comment dun. For example, kung may
Pwede rin.
mga sasagutin natin sila. Alam naman nilang very active tayo sa page. No? Sumasagot talaga tayo.
Add mo si Sir Franco sa Facebook para diretso
Yun rin po ako, no? Naka-public naman yung profile ko. So, Franco Adun. Although, be careful lang teachers, no? Kasi may dalawa akong profile. May description naman dun. So, read the description. Kung para sa student or for the teachers. Because I keep Sir Jambi, I keep an account for my students. So, wala akong students dun sa personal account ko. Meron tayong personal life, tsaka syempre yung...
parang artista.
Hindi naman. Kasi syempre...
may personal tsaka may artista account.
Para may mga post tayo na personal, di ba? Something like that. For friends or for things like that. Okay? So, do add me in my personal account, okay, para I could entertain your questions. So, mga nag-message na sa akin, definitely naman, nag-reply naman ako. So far, no? Miss Irene, can connect with... Sir, Miss Irene, change po kayo ng browser. Usually, the browser blocks the Bitly extension.
And ano yung magandang browser na gamitin, Sir Franco?
Google Chrome, syempre, yung ating kailangan dyan. Okay. Huwag natin masyadong pansinin nyo. Google Chrome. Or, syempre, pag hindi gumana sa Google Chrome, palit po tayo agad. Okay. So yan, maraming salamat po, teachers, and have a nice lunch and good afternoon to everyone.
Salamat po.